You're listening to DMCs with Lolo Mhaga, where I sit down with interesting people who have interesting things to say. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Good day and welcome, my dear friends, to the inaugural installment of DMCs with myself, Lolo Mhaga. By way of a brief introduction, I am a admitted attorney focusing on property and finance, and with a real love for all things politics, economics, and finance and related. You may have seen some of my opinions in opinion pieces, newspapers, videos, speeches, and the kind. But today, the show is called DMCs. And for the older parts of our audience, that means deep, meaningful conversation, which I shall endeavor to do with some real movers and shakers in our world. Get down to the heart, get down to the meat of what they have to say, their beliefs, their opinions. And we could not be any luckier, any more blessed than to have this man of stature, our noble guest, Mr. Robert Hersov. Sir, I know your time is incredibly valuable. I thank you for joining us today.
What a great pleasure to be on here. I think I'm more of a shaker at the moment than a mover, but who knows?
Always got to shake things up, sir. So we want to get to your opinions as quick as possible. So I'll provide just a brief bio. You are a man that really needs no introduction, but nonetheless, I will make a feeble attempt to do so. So Mr. Robert Hersov is a serial entrepreneur and downright success, if there ever has been. Although born to one of the prestigious and wealthy families in South Africa, he nonetheless did not rest on his laurels and sought fame and fortune in far-off lands with a career that has spanned 2 continents. You have reached the heights in industries such as media and finance, starting off in a company like Goldman Sachs after Harvard Business School, and being the right-hand man to someone, a media mogul like Rupert Murdoch, subsequently creating companies which have become very successful. I know that you also worked with Johan Rupert in establishing the pay TV portion of his Richmond company. And from what I understand, a lot of your companies are London-based, Africa-focused. You also recently set up a special purpose acquisition company, African Gold Acquisition Corp, right? Yeah, focused on gold mining, not only on the continent, but also elsewhere in the world. And one area which I think we should then start with, which I had a lot of interest in, is you've pivoted towards technology and trying to accelerate that growth, invest in it, see what you can do with tech on this continent, which is quite intriguing to me, considering I just recently read Ernst Oppenheimer's biography. And if you look at his story, the light, the prism through which the African economy has always been viewed, our competitive advantage has been natural resources and cheap labor. Nonetheless, you want to leapfrog that and you see this growth potential in this new area. I'm just wondering, considering this context, what is your thinking, your logic in going down this avenue?
So the biggest growth sector in the world is technology. And Africa has an opportunity to leapfrog bad governance, restrictions, really ridiculous regulations using technology. And all businesses that are going to have exceptional growth will be technology or tech enabled. And Africa, has huge natural resources, but has great human resources too that haven't been properly incentivized and given the right opportunities. And that's changing now. The young people today in Africa are going to say, we've had enough of I'm 62 this year. We've had enough of these old people telling us what to do, putting in regulations, holding us back. We actually going to create the future. To me, that's the most exciting thing for our continent. And it's what we've been waiting for all along. So it's tech.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with you there. And I think considering how smartphones and their prevalence is growing on the continent and access to the internet is also too, not only we will see more consumers in that regard, but I think a lot more innovators, as I know these days you can even code on a cell phone. So those could be the platforms in which we establish our companies. And, you put your money where your mouth is, because I think you've also set up an African Growth Technology Fund to sort of try to get this going on the continent. Could you perhaps talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So Hans Otterling, partner at North Zone, which is one of the top VC tech investors in the world, 14 unicorns, Klarna, Spotify, and others.
Oh my gosh.
Nicholas Adelbert, the co-founder of Klarna, who's founded the Norshen Foundation and has actually put $20 million into Rwanda to build a tech hub and will do other tech hubs across Africa, and has invested prolifically to make the world a better place. 3 of us founded this Norshen 22, hired a GP team in Johannesburg, Lagos, and Nairobi. And I think we're going to close the fund in the next few months at $200 million. But I'll give you a little example of how Africa is changing and what this device means. You know, my buddy Strive Masiyiwa and others are building data centers all over Africa. There's subsea cables, there's fiber backbone. You can now get the internet anywhere in Africa. It may not be, you know, enough megs to download movies in all places, but it's getting way better and quicker. We were sitting in a taxi in a little bit of traffic in Nairobi, and we asked the taxi driver, I said, you know, he was waiting in traffic, said, excuse me, you know, how's this changed your life? And he could have said Candy Crush or, you know, games, any games. He didn't. He said, this has changed my life. It used to take me a whole day to pay my rent every month. I'd go and line up at my bank to withdraw the money, half a day. Line up at the person I'm renting it from, the house, another half a day. Today, I do it in 30 seconds on the smartphone. But what does that mean? It means 12 extra days of work a year. It's a massive amount of money for my family. And that's changed his life, you know, incomparably. And it's happening all across Africa. Different apps, different businesses. What I want to see are more business and entrepreneurial folk heroes from Africa. You know, when you look at someone building a great business in Africa, becoming a unicorn, billion-dollar business, I want people to say, hang on a sec, you know, these guys aren't that smart. I can do the same thing and get into their own entrepreneurial activities. That's what's going to change Africa. Let's create more folk heroes.
Well, I mean, fantastic. And to be honest, with someone like you pushing that along, you know, I can honestly see at least us moving the needle a bit. And your partner's fantastic. You know, I think that is absolutely great. So a lot of the focus in the interviews that have been done with you has been, such as you've seen now, your entrepreneurial and business acumen. I mean, world-renowned in that regard. And
I've made lots of mistakes and I've had failures. Don't forget, that's part of the game.
Yeah. Actually, perhaps we should explore that. A lot of famous or successful people don't like to talk too much about their failures, but it's an integral part for you to reach the kind of goals that you eventually want, because you learn from your mistakes. And I'm just wondering, what role has failure played in your path to success?
So let me give 3 things that successful, famous, powerful leaders don't do. And I did the opposite. No one admits they were born wealthy, lucky, you know, like I have been. They all say, oh no, we had it tough. And there was we may have been rich, but it was all debt, all that nonsense. Okay.
Donald Trump.
All of them say that. No one comes out of the box and says, I was lucky to be born in one of the wealthiest families in South Africa. I just tell the truth. They all make it up. The second thing is they don't talk about their failures. Oh no, I'm a great investor. I very rarely lose money. I just tell it up front. And the third thing they do, which is the most unconscionable, I think I got that word right,
Yes.
is they don't speak truth to power. And I've called out just about every corporate leader in South Africa for not standing up and telling the ANC they are corrupt and destroying this country. You know, I've named names and they piss people off, you know.
So I've seen.
But they don't. They say, oh, business and politics mustn't mix. So those 3 things, I do it the opposite way. I say, I was born into a wealthy family. I was very lucky. 2, I've had failure and I'm happy to talk about them. And 3, ANC needs to be removed from power because they are destroying this country. Now, have you heard Adrian Gore say that? I haven't. And others. Sorry, not just him.
In fact, it's been quite
Why
worrying.
don't they?
He's been speaking quite openly about NHI. And it's like, my goodness, sure, theoretically, but these guys can't even run a municipality.
Exactly. I don't know what he's up to. I've never met him, and he's hugely successful. But Anyway, we won't get onto naming names.
No. Let's not get you
Anymore.
into hot water anymore.
Yeah. I got into enough.
You've given me an opportunity to segue into what I'd like to focus on in this conversation, which is your outspoken political views. And funny enough, not enough people have explored that, because I think that's one of the most interesting parts about you. And it's made you a bit notorious, well, at least with the powers that be. But nonetheless, I think you really have something interesting and important to say. I'd like to just start with the country in general. So you've mentioned South Africa and its current governance configuration is pretty much uninvestable. And you suggested to families to take their children, seek education opportunity elsewhere. I'm just curious then, why would you return in such a situation?
So I'm turning 62 this year, and my wife and I, 6 years ago, suddenly realized my two older boys are semi-independent, university and living abroad. The younger ones, they can move anywhere. And I'd been in the UK a long time, and my wife's a New Zealander, and we sort of said, well, we can be anywhere. Let's go and live it somewhere else. And it was pretty clear, come back to South Africa. And then she said, it has to be Cape Town, it has to be Bishop's Court, and this is the house we should buy. Zoom. It wasn't very hard. And we're very, very happy we made that decision. Could not be happier. So I've come back, whereas most people have gone the other way. But my sons, my oldest sons, born in England, educated abroad, other than Luke, who's finishing UCT this year, he'll move overseas, but they can build their lives, contacts, and money abroad and wait and see. And when South Africa looks like it's coming good, come back if they want to. And that applies to everyone. They should go abroad, get experiences, build money, build networks, but be ready to come back when the opportunity presents itself, which is, for the first time ever, I'm starting to feel a little bit hopeful.
And I guess
about this country.
Wow. Wow, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first.
Do you want to hear why? I'll tell you very quickly.
Please do share.
Everyone says the ANC will get less than 50%. I think they're going to get less than 45%, which means they have a choice. Coalition with the evil, racist EFF, which won't happen because that will melt the country down. There'll be civil unrest, but not the bad guys.
Won't be much of an economy left.
Nothing. Or with the DA. But that really isn't going to happen because the principles, the DA's principles here, ANC's in the toilet. Yeah. And that ain't going to happen. And even if Cyril is, some people say, a decent guy, I say spineless, even if he does the good guys of the ANC, if such a thing exists, try and team up with the DA, it isn't going to work. Okay, it just isn't going to work. So what happens? The DA, Herman Mashaba's Action SA, FF Plus, Inkatha Freedom Party, and the smaller parties come together with 55% and form a coalition. And they're already working together in municipalities around the country and working out how to work together.
So I think we already started to see how those coalitions could play out in the smaller structures, like you said, in municipalities.
And I think that's going to be the next government. Now, who of those people will be the president? I don't think that president will come from the DA. I just don't. And I think DA know that. I think Herman is probably the most likely candidate, but be a little aware there are one or two beneath and around that have the magic. I'm not going to name, I'm going to name. Watch Gayton McKenzie. I rate him very, very highly. That is an extraordinary man who he came out of jail and he is just saintly. I mean, he's extraordinary. Watch him. I just think he's a fantastic human being and good for this country.
I never would have thought you'd say that.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, well, you heard it here also here first, folks.
Yeah,
that's really
more to come. No, he's an extraordinary man.
I'd like to focus on the second biggest party now in our country, the Democratic Alliance, because you've spoken a bit about them. You've mentioned that, they've always been there fighting the good fight. Their governance record speaks for itself. And to be honest, you said we must support them, we must vote for them. But as I was sort of researching for this interview, I sort of looked into some of the results in last year's election. And, the real story was the ANC's abysmal performance, of course, as you already alluded to. But another story was the significant drop that the Democratic Alliance also had. I think significant less voters. The vote share dropped by like 9%. And were it not for the ANC doing so badly, maybe they wouldn't have been able to cobble together all these coalitions. And I'm just wondering, with such a good case that you make for why one should vote for the DA, why isn't the rest of the country sort of seeing what you're seeing?
I think what's happening now is you've got a lot of good options. Action SA, Herman Mashaba, superb. Inkatha is coming good. You know, they really are sort of the conservative, but positive conservative element of our country. FF Plus are gaining a bit of ground. I mean, very small still. And other new parties coming up. You know, I think Musi Maimane will re-enter. And this is a good thing. You know, you're going to have a lot of different animals out there that you can back, a lot of choice. 16 or 17 million registered voters did not vote. So guess what? The swing vote's going to be 2 to 2.5 million people that swings this election. And it's going to come from Gayton, Musi, but maybe not from the DA. Now, the DA, remember when 94, the first election, the ANC won every single country, province and city and municipality except Cape Town. And then the DA over time went from Cape Town, Western Province, and into the rest of South Africa, winning, because it was the official opposition. Then the lunatics of the EFF came up and they sucked the radicals out of the ANC. The DA pulled a few moderates out of the ANC, but the DA, I think, knows their role is never going to be running the country. They know it. Their role is to keep the Western Cape and compete in municipalities and show how a country should be run. Keep their standards maybe too high for South Africa, but it's a good thing just to show how bad the ANC is. You know, if the DA does this, the ANC can't even come close. And that's embarrassing for the ANC every single day. So the DA's role is to be a powerful anchor to a good coalition government. And for that, they are superb. They won't fall below 15%. They'll be 15 to 20 all the time.
I agree they've been a great opposition force, but I guess I'm a bit hesitant to just consign them to that. And, you know, as I was thinking about this, I recall there's another brash businessman who was outspoken about his views of the terrible nature in which those who are running the country were doing. And he took over a party in opposition at the time, and led it towards some great success, and sort of spoke more clearly to its constituency and its base in a way that traditional politicians had not. I don't know if you've picked up on who I'm talking about here, but I'm talking about Donald Trump. And, you know, he took over the Republican Party in the time when it was rudderless, and he sort of showed a direction. And now it's looking like it's essentially going to take over once again. And I'm just wondering, would you ever consider throwing your hat in the ring, maybe leading the DA in the direction it should be?
No, I'm just, my character is wrong for politics. I tell the truth. I don't suffer fools. I'm okay to compromise on things, but I won't compromise on a lot of my ideals. And those ideals don't fit the bill anywhere. And the DA, you know, I'm too maverick for the DA. I'm too maverick for any political party, to be blunt. I mean, maybe that's what South Africa needs, but I think I'm 62. It needs a younger, fresher person. And there's great talent out there. I mean, there is terrific talent in Inkatha, in DA, in you know, in Gayton, in Herman. It's there. We've got the people that can run this country. They're there. We just got to get them in and get the ANC's past its sell-by date. Bluntly, let's get rid of them.
Yeah, no. I think your assessment of the ANC has been scathing, to put it mildly. But you're being vindicated. You're being vindicated with blackout.
I have.
You know,
I have civil unrest.
The flooding, how terrible the infrastructure and the response has been. I mean, the proof is in the pudding, and you're showing that we cannot.
But I've taken hits on one of my businesses. I won't say why, but there's been $10 to $20 million of damage to me personally from that speech.
But you know, That makes you think you're a man of conviction, and you're a man that's.
But there's no going back, is there?
Yeah, well,
I said what I said.
You're hesitant to join in the fray, but maybe that's what we need. A lot of people are more interested in political speak or positioning themselves correctly, but you've seen the wider world. You've seen what it takes to be a prosperous, successful nation. And sometimes someone just needs to say it and push on through.
Yeah, well, I am. I've got a speech brewing, the big one. And I know what I'm going to say. I've actually written bits of it. I don't normally write speeches, but I write it more to just stimulate my creative mind, my prose, my grammar, my style, tone, but then I never use it. But it's not the time now. Now's the period of limbo. It's going to be ready later.
I'm really looking forward to that.
And I'm also thinking, and maybe you and I should do this together. I think there's a 1 minute video we could produce on how an economy works. 1 minute. Investment, and just for people that don't know what we're talking about. 1 minute. Here's how the economy works. It's simple. Bing, 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 bing. Here's how democracy works. It's 1 minute each for people that are a bit confused. And most people don't know how an economy works. 99% don't.
Yes, no, I think that would be a fantastic idea. And man, your profile would certainly draw in some people who'll be able to see exactly, in many ways, they're being lied to at how these things function.
You and I could get this economy growing at 8% a year. It would be the fastest growing economy.
8%.
There's a wall of money that wants to come in, that's ready to come in. We have such goodwill, but they're not investing because it's chaos right now.
Yeah.
But this it would take off like a rocket. And for these lunatics who run the unions, they're worried about jobs. They just block everything. There'll be more jobs than people can even fill.
Exactly.
It's so easy. You just can't do it under the ANC because they break and steal. That's what they're good at. Those two things only.
That should be the new manifesto.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's over.
Actually, alluding to how an economy runs and areas like that, you made me think about another comment that you've made regarding BEE. And I think you referred to it as theft or something along the lines of that. And, I understand the sentiment because ultimately shares are property and you're forcing people to hand them over to people who are politically connected. Now, the logic from what I could understand, at least back then, was to change the ownership structure of our economy, sort of make sure that the decisions that are being made are factoring in different kinds of voices or voices from different areas of our society. But I don't think that's actually really played out as intended. And I think a good example is Marikana, for example, where we had our current president sitting on that board. And in his interventions, he spoke as any other board member would speak. And really, it shows you the logic of the market dictates beyond what your race or whatever might be. And I'm just curious, what is sort of your reasoning for having this displeasure with how BEE has played out?
So Julius Malema, with whom I've had a lunch, and by the way, 80% of what he says is 100% correct, and you and I would agree with it. It's the Looney Tunes nationalization stuff and madness.
The communistic stuff.
But he says BEE has been a failure. I think it should be not BEE, it should be currently disadvantaged economic empowerment, which is fixated by race, which is a leftist terminology. And I know it's easy for people to say, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? Fair enough. But, take people who are disadvantaged and help them. Yes, 100% agree. So I'm a capitalist with a social underpinning. But to do it by race makes no sense at all, because there are disadvantaged people all across South Africa. But why not give the 15%, 26% to your employees instead of the usual candidates?
Wow.
You know who they are.
Yeah.
I mention names. Boss might be a name that we mentioned. Sucking at the teat of BEE.
Pretty much.
Why always give it to them? Give it to the employees. Give them the 13th check, the 13th month check instead of.
Businessmen in South Africa, I've heard mention sort of like co-ownership. We see such models in countries like Germany, where like the supervisory board would have employee representation. or in the Scandinavian countries, where actually in the board of directors itself, there's representation. And I think that could actually solve some of the issues and how decisions are
and
made.
the unions won't like it, because the shareholder employees might say, well, we don't really need you anymore, Mr. Unionist, because we're shareholders.
I really.
So, you know, that, and then the title deed issue drives me insane. Can I just jump onto that?
Yeah,
segue. You know, Gigi Alcock and Musi Maimane say a homeless settlement is next generation suburb. So you better get used to it. And that's so true. You know, people have lived in Khayelitsha, Langa, you know, Alexander Soweto for generations and don't have the title deed to the plot of land they live on. And it's very easy with technology, drones, GPS, you know, whatever, to demarcate that land, no matter how big it is, and give them the title deed. Maybe they pay a tiny, weeny little mortgage on it, just so they understand there's value, you know, and you educate them. And that can be done using technology now, but they own the land. They can get a mortgage, they can sell the land, they can transfer. Why hasn't it been done? Well, I have a view on that. Same as education. Hear that,
actually.
Keep people ignorant and keep them out of the informal economy. Then you can bribe them with a T-shirt and a blue sky future. In other words,
or 350 Rand or whatever.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And what's quite interesting is if you want to get people playing in the capitalist economy, you need to give them some kind of asset to work with. And what is better than property with the title deed? You can use it as security to get money.
Easy to do if you have the will. They don't have the will. I believe the ANC just want to keep people impoverished, uneducated, because they'll vote for them. Smart people won't vote for the ANC.
Gosh, that's quite a depressing end. Yeah.
Well, that's why they're, you know, 17 million people aren't voting. They just forget politics, bring me nothing. And the township economy is thriving, booming. We've got the highest unemployment rate in the world, which is 45%. But it isn't really 45, it's probably 25, because 20% of those people have just given up on the government and are building businesses and fixing things and selling things on the street corner and making good money. There's a real informal economy where people are employed, but they don't go to the government for licenses. They don't expect anything because they're used to the government not delivering. So they just don't ask permission to get on with it. And that's my view now. Should ignore government, just get on with building a business and behaving well and ignore them.
Well, actually, I think we're running out of time, but I would just like to add on that. I remember you mentioning that a lot of the entrepreneurial fertile ground actually lies in some of those people in the more working class, informal economy. Yeah, because they will provide
natural entrepreneurs and capitalists. The communism is anathema to Africa. Africans are not communists. Or even socialists.
I certainly agree.
Hello?
Oh, sorry, you kind of froze.
We're back.
There. Yes, we're back.
So did you, but yeah. So Africans are not communists or even socialists. They are natural entrepreneurs and capitalists, and technology will set us free.
And that is a great note.